It's a very good allegory of the story of separation. So Adam and Eve seem to be in paradise. And then they, one of them, the woman, I think, eats the apple of knowledge. And then, of course, she tells the husband, "You will eat it as well." So then the husband also eats the apple of knowledge.
No, Gavi.
The apple of knowledge is the sudden, apparent knowing that I am a person. I now know that I am a person. I am this me. It's the arising of self-consciousness, apparent consciousness of a self. So directly that apparent knowledge of self, self-consciousness arises. What arises with it also is separation from paradise. Because now I am aware, I know I am a person, and I know this manifestation. And by knowing this manifestation, I have to be apart from it. To know something, there has to be a knower and the known. So now, I am not paradise, I am not life, I am not energy, but I know there is energy, and I know there is life, and I know there's a world, because I am somebody who is in that. I am somebody who is a part of the whole. And so, people, tiny children are simply beingness. Beingness is paradise. There isn't anyone, there just is being. It just is life. It just is energy happening. There's nobody in it. There's nobody who's a part of it. There's nobody who knows that. There just is life. And the tiny child is just life. Even if it cries for hunger or whatever, there's nothing in there that identifies with that happening. It is just what seems to be happening. So the tiny child is just beingness, absolute innocence in life, just life being life. And then what arises, what seems to arise, is a moment when suddenly there is a sense of identity. So the tiny child could be in its cot and the mother enters the room. And before that, that was just life happening and there's no identity at all. And suddenly there's a knowing of something else that's entered this life, this floating miasma of energy, which is unidentifiable. Suddenly there's an identity. And then there's a knowing that there's something that's entered that life. And suddenly there's also a knowing that there's an identity here. The energy that is boundless suddenly also appears to contract into the body and create a centre in the body called me. And directly that happens, there's separation. There's now something that knows it has an identity, and it knows it's in a world of other identities. It now knows that it is something, and everything in the world is also something else, lots of somethings. So it grows up in a world where it believes it is something. It grows up in a world where there are apparently many other people who know they are people. And so as it grows in that world and is indulging in that world, so it reinforces the sense of having a separate identity. That separation from what is happening is like being cast out of paradise, because what now happens is that the experience of being separate creates the experience of being separate from everything that happens. There's now something here which things happen to. There is now something here that thinks it's seeing, well, it is seeing trees and rooms and floors and people, but what it sees and what it experiences is a separation from those things. It now knows, thinks it knows the tree, and knows the room, and knows the person that's over there. I am this thing here, and I'm separate from that person over there. They're over there. And what arises in that separation is a dissatisfaction. It's not always recognised. Most people don't really even know they live in a sort of quiet dissatisfaction. But that's how it really is. Nothing really in the end is fulfilling. The individual will search around for fulfillment. We see individuals try to gather into themselves everything they can to feel fulfilled, like money and so on. But in the end, there can be no fulfillment because that individual centre that is in there, that contracted energy that is formed, is constantly separate. It is only separate. The nature of that centre, that me, that self, that individual, is separation. It doesn't move in and out of separation. It just purely, for it to exist, it has to exist in knowing, it has to exist in awareness, it has to exist in being apart from what it knows and what it can be aware of. So it lives in an artificial reality. It lives in an artificial, separate reality, uniquely human. Nothing else in this manifestation lives in that separate reality. And so living in that separate reality, actually the longing in the end, and the only thing that will satisfy, is to live in the natural reality. But unfortunately for the individual who's living in that separate reality, there's nothing that can be done about changing that. There's nothing that the individual can do to shift out of that separation. Everything that the individual does to shift out of that separation and find fulfillment only goes on reinforcing the sense that I am a person here and I have free will and choice and I can take action to do something to bring results. And in a sense, when we live in the world, we grow up and there seems to be a confirmation that we can take action to bring consequence. Work, school, all those things, all those different relationships. I can take action to make my story better. So it seems to be confirmed in one way that we do have free will. But the one thing that we can never grasp, the one thing that we can never get hold of through our own effort is fulfillment, is wholeness. Doesn't matter what we do. We can meditate, we can eat rice, we can open our fourth chakra, we can go to therapists, we can become Christians. Doesn't matter what we do. All we're really doing is confirming that separation. It's confirming our knowing. It's confirming our awareness of it. It strengthens. We become more and more aware that we're lost. And somehow, whatever we do is never going to bring that. So what we're sharing together here is another possibility. What can happen here is the exposure of that dilemma, that impossible dilemma. We can expose here how the individual grows and creates its own individuality by setting up roles or playing games or whatever you like. Trying to feed itself continuously. We can share that together conceptually. And to some extent, that can begin to disrupt our conviction that we are people. That's what happens. I see that more and more in the time that I've been talking to people. That holding on to me can start to disrupt. Sounds like a process, and in a way, you could say it is until it's all over. But the other thing that is more powerful than anything that we share together in words is something to do with energy. Basically, separation is a contracted energy. There's a sense of something held here, a tension, a fear, a protection, a control. There's something that's thinks it's in control. That's why liberation is a fearful thing, because there's a sense that if I let go of me, I'll lose control. The reality is that there is nobody and there is no control. But what can happen when there's an openness to this, it doesn't have to be in a meeting like this. So there's nothing in that sense that you have to be somewhere for this to happen. But certainly it is very powerful when there's a readiness to hear something as radical as this. There can be an opening to that energy which is boundless. It's nobody's energy. This is nobody's message. It just is boundlessness. Within that boundlessness arises apparent contraction, and that contraction can suddenly evaporate. And there, all that's left, what I call liberation, all that's left is nothing. Liberation is the absence of the illusion of being a separate individual. It's the end of the dreams and hopes of the individual. Nothing is left. And strangely, when nothing is left, almost like a vacuum, it's filled with everything. And there's nothing, there's everything. And there's emptiness, there's fullness. That is liberation. That is fulfillment. That's what we love.